Wow, uranium stocks crashed. Are you afraid? Are you panicking? The URNM North Shore Global Uranium Mining ETF was down 10% on the week. And I want to explain to you exactly why that is. The main reason why that is that everything crashed. And I mean everything, crypto, stocks, the ARK ETF. Look at the ARK ETF weekly performance, down 13.8%. So the bottom line and the key takeaway is and has always been that uranium stocks are directly correlated with the overall market conditions. They cannot survive in a crashing bear market in stocks. They are not immune to the broader market. They will crash and overreact just like everything else. But the beauty of uranium stocks is that there are truly positive, great fundamentals behind them. And so when you have crashing risk assets bolstered by good fundamentals, that creates value. Also, if you are concerned or worried that the bull market's over, you should probably ask yourself if you'd be feeling the same way about Paladin Energy back in 2004 when it crashed from 56 cents down to 41 cents. That's just how bull markets work. Investing is not fun. It's not easy. If anyone told you that, they're wrong, and they've probably already lost a lot of money at this point, because making money in general is not fun or easy. And so least of all is investing, right? It's all about overcoming the pain and the mental anguish and being disciplined and grinding out the bad times. That's what it's all about. Because let's look at this Paladin chart from 2000. Just nonstop shakeouts the whole way up. You can just see in 2004, it dipped from 56 down to 41. In 2005, it dipped from $1 down to 81 cents, 20% haircut. And again, in 2005, it dipped from 220 down to 172. And it's just nonstop shakeouts until people capitulate and are bullish forever and go all in at the top, and they get absolutely clobbered again. So it's just a complete manipulation of emotions. Market whales are the people that make real money in stock markets. And the way they do that is by eating as many minnows as humanly possible. That's how they get their money. So they're the market makers. They control the rise and fall of these items. And they love dragging in retail crowds and minnows to buy up their liquidity, right? They love that. And that's how they make money. So the goal is to outsmart them, or at least don't fall for their traps, right? So again, this is nothing but a technical pullback, but there is a legitimate question about whether or not the broader market is going to crash, right? Because if uranium stocks are directly correlated with the broader market, then what happens in the broader market really, really matters, right? And so the main reason the broader market crashed is because of a variety of factors. So one is the Omicron variant spread and people being afraid of more COVID lockdowns and more economic turmoil, fear of higher inflation, Fed speak. This is probably the biggest reason, actually, is the Fed still planning on tapering, and playing the market like a bunch of puppets, which they've been doing, right? So I think what they're, and also a potential debt ceiling impasse, right, on the horizon. So I think what the Federal Reserve is doing is they're playing with the market and they're trying to cause kind of a deflationary scare again, keep down inflation, say they're going to taper, crash the markets a little bit, and then ride in and save the day like they always have done, because they cannot afford for risk assets to crash, and they know it. And so this is just all a song and dance that we've seen before. And if the March 2020 crash of COVID couldn't stall the market, the Omicron variant definitely won't. So long story short, it's a buying opportunity. And then you also have to remember the grossly indebted margin traders and retail investors. So this is also a cleansing of the minnows, right, that have levered up to the gills in stocks because they think the Federal Reserve is going to prop it up forever. And they can't handle these short-term corrections, so they get killed and washed out of the market, and are going to be bearish when the next spike up happens, which clearly will happen because the Federal Reserve clearly has the power to manipulate the market, and they're going to manipulate it up like they always have done. So nothing's changing. The fundamental story behind uranium just gets better and better. So dips like this, which are technical in nature, related to the broader market, just cause more buying opportunities potentially, right? And let's go into why uranium is still a fundamentally bullish asset. So there's this brilliant article from the National Review called The New Nuclear Moment, and it's saying parts of the left are shifting to pro-nuclear. And we know the left is in power right now, and we know that whatever shift in sentiment the leaders have is going to trickle down into the economy. It just will. And we've talked about this, how France is going left, and how pretty much the biggest countries in the world, China, America, Japan, the most powerful, influential countries in the world are all going pro-nuclear. And here's this great map from the National Review piece showing which countries are in favor and which countries are against nuclear. And you can just see green is in favor. The vast majority are for the inclusion of nuclear in green terminology. So I'm not sure why the United Kingdom is gray, and they're saying it's an unknown position, but they're investing heavily. They're all in on uranium and nuclear power. So not sure about that, but you can just see that the only ones really against and fighting against classifying nuclear energy as green so that major billions of dollars of investment can go towards that space are Germany and Spain. And, Italy is uncertain, rather favorable. So you can just see the shift is happening. And this article states, even in Germany, pro-nuclear forces are taking to the streets. So this just is a cool graphic and speaks to the shifting sentiment. And so when we look at the spot price of uranium, we can see, so really it's completely fundamental driven. So you can look at the crashes recently and say, oh man, like I'm losing money. It's a terrible investment. You can say that all day. But if you look at the spot price of uranium, the chart, you can just see kind of back when Fukushima happened, there was a massive meltdown. And the reason for this meltdown was truly based on fundamental reasons. Japan, its 30 reactors shut down forever. One of the most influential countries in the world, biggest users of uranium, shut down their supply. So there's a glut of uranium on the market, and that caused this dip. And so what we're seeing now is the exact opposite. So a dip today is not the same as a dip in 2012, 13, 14, 15, which were based on actual fundamentals and oversupply. Today's rise is based on a complete undersupply, a supply crunch, insanely growing demand, massive support. And so dips today are buying opportunities, whereas dips 10 years ago certainly should not have been bought. So it's just a completely different world. And so speaking to that, right? So Japan caused this meltdown, and also, the anti-nuclear sentiment that Fukushima caused around the world caused this meltdown, right? France was trying to get away from nuclear power. Japan, obviously, even in the US, we stopped investing in it. But this narrative is exactly different. Today, for instance, this week, we have this article from Japan saying Japanese nuclear reactor restarted following prolonged outage. So this is just one of their 30 reactors that they've restarted, brought back online. It's insanely bullish. To think that an island country that is prone to earthquakes and had a meltdown in recent memory is returning to nuclear power because it's their best option. It just shows how important it is and how necessary it is, and how the bearish dip that happened in the last decade is going to completely reverse because it's obvious that these countries need nuclear and they're going big on it. Then just thinking about the bullish use cases of the future, I love this article. It's really interesting. NASA wants to put a nuclear power plant on the moon by 2030, and you can help. So people love talking about investing in space, right? Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, Blue Origin, everyone is just really bullish. It's a growth industry, is investing in space travel. And, it makes sense, right? It's a new frontier for humanity. And so what do you think is going to fuel the big projects if they expect to go anywhere past the moon, right? These big space vehicles, traveling the galaxy, right? What do you think is going to fuel that? Well, NASA seems to think that nuclear energy is going to fuel that. They want to put a nuclear power plant on the moon by 2030. 30. That seems very ambitious to me, but it is just exciting and thinking about like the use cases of nuclear power and how obviously if you bring like an SMR, small modular reactor, up to the moon, you can refuel space vehicles on the moon to power further journeys. And it's just one very, very, very interesting aspect of how nuclear energy can be used for space travel. I'd love to know why it's used in submarines, but not in spaceships. It's really, really interesting to think about that potential. And people are very bullish on space travel at the moment. And if the narrative does shift to powering these vehicles with nuclear energy, then that's another huge bullish catalyst for uranium. That's all I have for today, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it and look forward to covering this booming industry continuously and keeping you guys up to date. This discussion is for informational purposes only. Nothing in this discussion should be taken as investment advice. Guests are not compensated for their appearance. Do not base any investment decisions on the information presented.